12. The flies in the marketplace. Flee, my friend, into thy solitude. I see thee deafened with the noise of the great men, and stung all over with the stings of the little ones. Admirably do forest and rock know how to be silent with thee. Resemble again the tree which thou lovest, the broad-branched one. Silently and attentively it o'erhangeth the sea. Where solitude endeth, there beginneth the marketplace, and where the marketplace beginneth, there beginneth also the noise of the great actors, and the buzzing of the poison flies.
Picking up right where he left off at the end of the previous discourse, the new idol, Zarathustra once again tells us to shun society and go into the wilderness. In the previous discussion, he targeted his attack at the modern state, the mechanism that runs our life. In the flies and the marketplace, he shifts his attention towards the people who live in those states. He divides them into two groups, the great men, which he also calls the great actors, and the little men, which he calls the poison flies.
In the world, even the best things are worthless without those who represent them. Those representers, the people call great men. Little do the people understand what is great, that is to say, the creating agency, but they have a taste for all representers and actors of great things. Around the devisers of new values revolveth the world. Invisibly it revolveth. But around the actors revolve the people and the glory. Such is the course of things.
The world, says Zarathustra, revolves around those who create new values. The ones who break from the herd, reject its values, and have the power to create new ones are what ensures that humanity will not decay and die. They are the ones we should be calling great people. Greatness, then, is dependent on the ability to create on a grand scale. However, society doesn't recognize their greatness, but attributes greatness to another type of people. What he calls the great actors, meaning those who know how to present themselves to others as representatives of lofty values. They are the ones who get all the fame and glory.
Spirit hath the actor, but little conscience of the spirit. He believeth always in that wherewith he maketh believe most strongly, in himself. Tomorrow he hath a new belief, and the day after one still newer. Sharp perceptions hath he, like the people, and changeable humours. To upset, that meaneth with him to prove. To drive mad, that meaneth with him to convince. And blood is counted by him as the best of all arguments. A truth which only glideth into fine ears he calleth falsehood and trumpery. Verily he believeth only in gods that make a great noise in the world.
The actors are not driven by any inner truth that guides them. They just pick whatever values are considered lofty at the time and present themselves as their role models. They do it in an ostentatious way, so everyone knows about it. When arguing about values, they don't do it in order to figure out the true and the good, but to win the debate. When presented with nuanced arguments that require thinking, they use their power to shut them down. They care only about aggrandizing themselves.
Full of clattering buffoons is the marketplace, and the people glory in their great men. These are for them the masters of the hour. But the hour presseth them, so they press thee, and also from thee they want yea or nay. Alas, thou wouldst set thy chair betwixt for and against. On account of those absolute and impatient ones, be not jealous, thou lover of truth. Never yet did truth cling to the arm of an absolute one. On account of those abrupt ones, return into thy security. Only in the marketplace is one assailed by yea or nay.
The masses worship those actors, and believe they represent the ideal. They pressure everyone to conform to their values. Thus, everyone becomes an actor, behaving in ways that are not according to their nature, but according to how society says one should behave. What is called great people are merely those who do it better and flashier than others. For those who seek true greatness, this is a toxic environment. that pressures them to abandon their spiritual journey and conform. They want to break away from this charade and seek the truth, but Zarathustra reminds them that truth is never absolute. So they should seek their personal truth, the truth that belongs to that time and place, and on that basis create new values. Even if they succeed, however, the marketplace is no place for them. Very few will buy what they are selling. Zarathustra advises us to accept that this is the nature of human society. This is how things are, and we should not be discouraged by it, but forget about the marketplace and seek other venues.
Slow is the experience of all deep fountains. Long have they to wait until they know what hath fallen into their depths. Away from the marketplace and from fame taketh place all that is great. Away from the marketplace and from fame have ever dwelt the devisers of new values.
The fountain metaphor speaks about how people who are deep process new values. They don't just adopt them and wear them on their sleeve for all to see, but internalize them, think about them, and let them slowly grow. This process has to take place away from the marketplace. True greatness is born elsewhere.
Flee, my friend, into thy solitude. I see thee stung all over by the poisonous flies. Flee thither where a rough, strong breeze bloweth. Flee into thy solitude. Thou hast lived too closely to the small and the pitiable. Flee from their invisible vengeance. Towards thee they have nothing but vengeance. Raise no longer an arm against them. Innumerable are they, and it is not thy lot to be a fly-flap.
After talking about the so-called great men of the marketplace, now Zarathustra starts to talk about the little men we find there, the poisonous flies. They are people driven by envy, and they seek vengeance on those who have true greatness and remind them of their smallness. Zarathustra advises the creators not to fight against them, as there are too many of them. You should simply try to avoid them.
Innumerable are the small and pitiable ones, and of many a proud structure raindrops and weeds have been the ruin. Thou art not stone, but already hast thou become hollow by the numerous drops. Thou wilt yet break and burst by the numerous drops. Exhausted I see thee by poisonous flies. Bleeding I see thee, and torn at 100 spots, and thy pride will not even upbraid.
Zarathustra goes on warning us not to fight these small people. Don't make the mistake of thinking they are harmless. Their poison works slowly, and has destroyed many great people.
Blood they would have from thee in all innocence. Blood their bloodless souls crave for, and they sting, therefore, in all innocence. But thou, profound one, thou sufferest too profoundly even from small wounds, and ere thou hadst recovered, the same poison worm crawled over thy hand. Too proud art thou to kill these sweet tooths, but take care lest it be thy fate to suffer all their poisonous injustice.
It is because you are profound that they are dangerous to you. Their type of poison runs deep in deep souls. Beware of being too proud to admit the danger.
They buzz around thee also with their praise. Obtrusiveness is their praise. They want to be close to thy skin and thy blood. They flatter thee, as one flattereth a god or devil. They whimper before thee, as before a god or devil. What doth it come to? Flatterers are they, and whimperers, and nothing more. Often also do they show themselves to thee as amiable ones, but that hath ever been the prudence of the cowardly. Yea, the cowardly are wise.
Zarathustra warns you to beware even of those small men who seem to like and admire you. They are not driven by the same things that you are driven by, so their effect is still poisonous to you.
They think much about thee with their circumscribed souls. Thou art always suspected by them. Whatever is much thought about is at last thought suspicious. They punish thee for all thy virtues. They pardon thee in their inmost hearts only for thine errors. Because thou art gentle and of upright character, thou sayest, blameless are they for their small existence. But their circumscribed souls think blamable is all great existence. Even when thou art gentle towards them, they still feel themselves despised by thee, and they repay thy beneficence with secret maleficence. Thy silent pride is always counter to their taste. They rejoice if once thou be humble enough to be frivolous.
Zarathustra continues to talk about those small men who are friendly towards you, the one who is seeking greatness. Here he sharpens the distinction between you and them. Since you are tolerant of the weaknesses in human nature, you are forgiving of their smallness. But they cannot forgive you for making them realize how small they are, so they subconsciously wish your destruction. And they believe that you are also like that, so they mistake your kindness for patronizing. They don't believe that true greatness is possible, so they are trying to find weaknesses in you, and secretly rejoice in your failings.
What we recognize in a man, we also irritate in him. Therefore be on your guard against the small ones. In thy presence they feel themselves small, and their baseness gleameth and gloweth against thee in invisible vengeance. Saw'st thou not how often they became dumb when thou approachedst them, and how their energy left them like the smoke of an extinguishing fire? Yea, my friend, the bad conscience art thou of thy neighbours, for they are unworthy of thee. Therefore they hate thee and would fain suck thy blood. Thy neighbours will always be poisonous flies. What is great in thee? That itself must make them more poisonous, and always more fly-like. Flee, my friend, into thy solitude, and thither where a rough, strong breeze bloweth. It is not thy lot to be a fly-flap. Thus spake Zarathustra.
He sums it up. There is no value to a friendship between small people and those who have true greatness. The latter bring out the worst in the former, and the former are destructive to the latter. Once again, the chapter ends with Zarathustra advising us to leave conformed society and find a place of solitude.